What up YouTube? How are we feeling today? Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing fantastic. Back with another Division 2 video and back with another TU16 build. And the crit skill build has just become stronger. Yes guys, this is a perfect synergy between shooting your gun and using your skills. I know a lot of people like to use their L1 R1 builds, just sitting in the corner using L1 and R1 to aim their skills, and the skills do all the talking. But this is a perfect synergy because there are still a lot of agents, where I am one of them, that still like to use their gun, and this is just a straight up beast. You can shoot down your enemies with your gun while your drone is flying around, while your turret is taking out people, and this is such a great build. And with TU16, this build just became stronger. With the update TU16.1, we can use our Picaro's holster, and this Picaro's holster is a great addition to this build. You can just use your drone to fly around, take out enemies, and it hits up to 150k a bullet. Then next to that, we have our turret. Put it down, and this will go up to that 250k a bullet. And then of course, while shooting your gun, this is such a great energy and a synergy in this build. This is a lot of fun, and this might be one of my favorites build out there. Of course, last week I showed you that Umbra skill build that gives you a lot of critical hit damage, even doing a lot more damage with your gun. But this has a lot more damage towards our skills and not only towards our gun. Yes, you still need to use your gun. You can still shoot down enemies with your gun and then aim your skills at them, and you can just shred through everything that the game has to offer. Every single content. Yes guys, you can even jump into a legendary and just use this skill build just to shred through enemies. It is a lot of fun to play with. Don't forget to hit that subscribe, hit that like. It helps me a lot on the YouTube algorithm. And of course, we want to grow our community. We want to grow our YouTube channel. And we also like to test out the builds with the community live on Twitch. /I am PurePrime. I'm live 5 times a week. And like you know, I still like to do my daily content as well. So enough intro, let's dive right into the build and let me show you what we're working with. And as usual, let's start with our specialization. We are using the technician specialization. Why? Because we're gaining an extra skill tier, and you will do 12% extra damage towards robotics and all the skill proxies within the game. So if you're fighting a legendary, we all know that drone spam, that dog spam, your skills, and you do a 12% more damage. And this comes in clutch, and that's why we are using the technician specialization. Then jumping over to the build itself, and this is the overview of the build, guys. Using 3 pieces of Empress, 1 piece of Wyvern, we got our extra damage output with our knee pads, with that extra multiplicative damage that helps out boosting up our weapon damage. And of course, for our secondary gun, boost up the weapon damage for that rifle damage as well. And then, as you can see, with the Picaro's holster on there. So, starting with my guns, I'm using the capacitor. Why are we using the capacitor? Because this is one of the best ARs to use on a crit skill build. You can still do a decent amount of damage with your gun. The base damage is 111.2k, an RPM of 700, and has a mag of 41. The attributes on there: assault rifle, damage to armor, and damage to health. Damage to health comes in clutch, especially against biggies and against those dogs. And a few red bars here and there, but the red bars just disappear when your skills or your gun take over. Why is this capacitor so strong? As we probably already know, the capacitance talent. Shooting enemies builds up a stack of a cap of 40, and each stack grants 1.5% skill damage, and after 5 seconds stacks to gain 1 per second. And for each skill tier that we're using, we're gaining a 7.5% weapon damage. So, because we're running around with a 6 core yellow build and 1 core reds, we can still do a decent amount of damage with our capacitor. And of course, our critical hit damage and our critical hit chance is up to par. So you can still shoot your crit shots a lot, hitting up to that 350k a bullet, just like you saw in the gameplay before. And I will show you a few more gameplay clips while I'm explaining this build. And this is so great. If you are on max stacks, you're gaining an extra 65% skill damage. And that's why our skills are boosting up to that 150k for the drone and almost 250k for the turret. Then next set, I'm using the Harmony. I use the Harmony because this comes with perfectly in sync. When you and your skills are hitting enemies, you're gaining a double damage output of 40% extra weapon damage and 40% extra skill damage. And that's why we use this as a secondary. If my AR damage runs out, I switch over to my Harmony and just tap my Harmony and do a lot of damage with my gun itself. And of course an extra 40% skill damage for our skills as well. I went for damage to target out of cover, critical hit damage and rifle damage. I can update this a little bit more, but normally I will use my capacitor all around. Then next to that, I'm just using the orbit right now, but you can use whatever. You can, for example, go for the TDI card because this gives you an extra skill tier as well while you handle it. It's not really that important for the build because we already at the max of 6 skill tiers. You cannot get above those 6 skill tiers, but you can choose whatever gun you like. I would go for a pistol you do not have proficient yet, because this is just an easy and quick way to boost up your pistol without farming for it or of course donating materials for it. Then over to the build. And as I said, I'm using the 3 pieces of Empress. Why are we using the 3 pieces of Empress? Because this gives us skill health, skill damage, and skill efficiency. And the last one is very important, because the skill efficiency is everything that the skill 3 has to offer. So it gives us an extra skill damage of 10%. It gives us an extra skill health, skill duration, you name it, everything that is active within the skill tree that is in skill efficiency. And that's why I'm running around with 3 pieces of Empress, and in my opinion is one of the best ways to go. And then of course the core attribute is skill tier. I went for skill damage, critical hit chance and a critical hit chance mod on there because I want to reach at least that 50% critical hit chance before I go into critical hit damage, because this, like I said at the beginning, is a perfect synergy of using your gun and using your skills. This is just a straight up crit skill build, and it is a lot of fun to play with, and everything on the build is skill damage and critical hit chance or critical hit damage. Then jumping over to my chest, another Empress International, skill damage on there, critical hit chance rolled on there, and then a critical hit chance mod. And I chose for kinetic momentum. You can of course go for glass cannon as well, but we are already pretty squishy because we do not have any armor regeneration, we do not have any blue cores on the build. So that's why I chose for kinetic momentum. And kinetic momentum and glass cannon are pretty close to each other with the damage output for your skills. So when in combat, each skill generates a stack while active or not on cooldown. Stacks increase your total skill damage by 1% and the total skill repair by 2%. Up to 15 stacks per skill lost when on cooldown. So this gives us an extra 15% skill damage. Yes, if you use glass cannon, you will also do a little bit more damage with your gun. You can go for that, but you get downed very fast, especially on the legendaries. And that's why, in my opinion, it's a better way to go for kinetic momentum. Then over to the backpack, the last piece of the Empress International. Again, skill damage on there, but now I chose for critical hit damage and a critical hit damage mod because I already reached that 50% critical hit chance, my personal cap where I like to be at the minimum. So I chose for a critical hit damage to gain a little bit more damage output when we hit a crit shot. Then I chose for combined arms. Combined arms is shooting an enemy increases the total skill damage by 25%. So from our capacitor, 65% extra. From our combined arms, 25% extra. And from our kinetic momentum, 15% extra. We're gaining 105% extra skill damage when you shoot an enemy. And this is why this is the perfect synergy between your skills and your gunplay. You still need to shoot your enemies, and that's why I chose to go for combined arms, giving me that extra output for my skills. Then jumping over to the rest of my build, for my holster I went for Wyvern. Why Wyvern? Because this gives us, for the first piece, 10% skill damage, and that's what we're doing it for. Again, I chose for skill damage and critical hit chance as the attributes on there. Then over to my knee pads, and this is all to boost my damage output. I went for weapon damage because we are running with a technician that already gives us 1 extra skill core. So we are already on the cap of 6 skill cores, and that's why I chose for weapon damage to do a little bit more damage output with my gun. The 8% damage you target out of cover is multiplicative. This is only applied to your gun. There are a few other skills that will apply to it, but for my turret and for my drone, the damage to target out of cover will not apply to that. And then again, I chose to go for skill damage rolled on there. And then the last piece, and this makes this so good, and the perfect synergy between using your gun and using your skills, it's the new Picaro's holster. This of course comes with that 15% weapon damage as the second attribute. Then I found it, or I got it gifted by a friend. Thank you very much, Notorious, again for dropping this to me with skill damage. So I optimized the skill damage, and then I had the opportunity to roll that armor core away for a skill tier reaching our max cap of 6 skill cores. And this comes in clutch while using your weapon. You do so much more damage output with your weapon because we're gaining that extra 15% weapon damage. This is the full overview of the build, and you have to try this, guys. And let me know in the comments down below how you're liking this, and are you using the new Picaro's holster already on your crit skill builds? I would say go for it. It boosts it up a lot. Then jumping over to the skills that we are using. As I explained, I'm using a turret and I'm using a drone. For the turret, it has a cooldown of 17.9 seconds, but it has a health of 6.6 million HP, guys. That turret almost never gets taken down. You can throw it on the ground, you can throw it on a chest, wherever you want to have it. Do it on an elevated position so it can just scan over the battlefield and take people out. Like I said, I have it on skill tier 6, and that's why the damage is up to an extra 120% and 420% health. This has a damage of 125, but like I explained, this almost gets doubled. So this gets near to that 250k a bullet, and this shoots so freaking fast. It is great to use. Then next that we're using the drone. This has a cooldown of 19.2 seconds, a health of 3.3 million, and a damage output of 78k. But again, this boost is up almost double to near that 152k while flying around, and if your whole build is procced with the capacitance talent, with shooting the combined arms for your backpack, and of course then using our chest talent as well. And this is why this build and this combination is so freaking strong. For the drone, I chose for 7.5% duration, 10% health and 5% damage for the mods. And for the turret, I chose for 5% damage, 7.5% duration and 7.5% skill haste. All the mods are maxed out, so it might be a little bit lower if you don't have every single thing maxed out, especially for the damage. But yeah guys, again, this is the overview of the build. You can choose whatever secondary or pistol that you like. Again, like I explained, just go for the guns that you do not have proficient yet. Just put them on your build and you don't have to donate materials or farm for duplicates. But I chose an extra damage output and an extra rifle damage because if we're running around in a legendary mission, it could be that you're running out of AR damage, and then it's great to have a secondary weapon that still does a decent amount of damage and not only boosts up your weapon damage, but also boosts up your skill damage. So let's jump over to the stats real quick. I have 50% critical hit chance on there and 99% critical hit damage with 75% headshot damage and 12% damage to armor and 10% health damage. These are all the stats that I can talk about because we already showed everything that the skills can do. And we don't have an armor core, we don't have other survivability on this build, so these are the only stats that you need to know about. But again, that's pretty much it guys. This is the whole overview and the whole build of my crit skill build, and man, this just became stronger by adding that Picaro's holster, and it is a great addition to the game if you ask me. So again, hit me up in the comments down below guys what you like about this build, what would you change around this build. But that addition to that Picaro's holster is such great addition, and after TU16.1 the update, we can now finally roll that core attribute away. So this is a great addition for all hybrid builds. But again, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribers button, and of course that notification bell. PurePrime out!